What's going on, Gacha Gang? Kawaii50 back with another fake Grand Order video, and I know a lot of you have been waiting for this video. I know a lot of you have been waiting to summon for this servant, and I gotta say, I'm happy to see that because I believe this man is underrated as heck. Let me just be straight up front with you all. That's right, we are going to be talking about Lanling Wang. Allies, craft essences, command codes, why this man is so special. We are going over the whole shebang. Without further ado, let's get started. Also, like and subscribe, please. Taking a look at the stats, Lanling Wang initially seems pretty unremarkable. We are looking at 12,625, which is decent HP, and 9,112 attack, which is decent attack. He's got a quick Arts Buster deck with an Arts Noble Phantasm that deals no damage, but we'll get to that in a sec. NP per hit is honestly fine at a 0.65%, and with that Arts Noble Phantasm, he does have the ability to Arts Brave Chain. Star Absorption is also what you can expect from a Saber. But that's all the time we're going to spend on stats, because stats aren't really that important for this man. Honestly, just like with his stats, his passive skills are not very important for his kit. So let's just start with his regular skills, starting with Beauty Concealing Mask rank A. This gives him 2 instances of invincibility that last for 3 turns, and also increases all of your allies' attack by 10 to 20%. And this is on a 6-turn cooldown. It is your nice basic general charisma buff, but having a charisma buff tied in with the character's main survivability skill to boot is pretty strong in my opinion. Not only are you able to have your attackers deal extra damage, but Lanling himself is going to stick around longer to have another chance to apply that attack boost to the rest of your attackers. Still, go ahead and max this skill last in my opinion, because the other 2 skills are going to be pretty important when it comes to his support kit. Lanling's second skill is Vigorous, like the Breaking Bamboo rank C. This increases one ally's NP gauge by 10 to 20%, and also increases that ally's buff success rate by 20 to 40% for 1 turn, and this is on a 5-turn cooldown. The fact that it increases NP gauge is pretty awesome for arts type teams. This just means they're going to charge into those NP loops even faster, and if you're not able to reach NP loop levels, say maybe you have an underleveled Artoria Archer or something like that, this is going to give you the little bit of extra insurance you need without having to equip a Mystic code for it. On top of that, this has the fancy buff success rate boost buff, which we're going to mention a couple of servants that's going to be really good for in the allies portion of this video. Max this second because the 5-turn cooldown is honestly pretty nice. Lanling's final and most important skill is Demonic Face rank EX. This increases the Arts card effectiveness of all allies by 10 to 20% for 3 turns, and also has a 60% chance to provide the 2 following buffs: increasing critical star drop rate by 30 to 50%, and increasing critical strength by 30 to 50%. This is what you want to max first, and now here's a very special note you're going to want to consider. Lanling's second skill affects this skill. So if you're able to get the buff rate on this skill to 100%, you are looking at a guaranteed 50% star rate boost and 50% crit damage boost at rank 10. On top of that, that is going to feed into his Noble Phantasm, which we'll go over in just a sec, which is a very strong supporter and debuffer type Noble Phantasm. So Lanling is able to look at the detriment of his kit, he's able to take a peek at it, and he is able to just say, you know what? Nah, we're just going to get rid of that with another skill. And it is very rare that we see a servant able to do that. Lanling's Noble Phantasm is the March of the Prince of Lanling. This decreases the MP charge for all enemies by 1, decreases the critical rate of all enemies by 20% for 3 turns, gives all your allies a 500 to 1500 damage cut for 3 turns, depending on the NP level, and its overcharge effect increases the attack of all his allies for 3 turns, and this is a whopping 30 to 50%. So let's just say for theory crafting's sake, you have an NP5 Lanling Wang, and you have his first skill at rank 10. Not only has he given himself invincibility, he's increased the attack of all his allies by 70%, he's given his allies a 1500 damage cut, 500% overcharge, and he has decreased the critical rate of all enemies by 20%. Now, this is in a perfect world. This is 300% NP charge, this is NP5, whatever. But if that is the extreme, if we are looking at bare minimum a 50% attack increase, a 500% damage reduction, sorry, 500 damage reduction, that would have been nuts if it was 500%, and a 20% crit chance reduction, that's still really good. That is still very, very powerful. And on top of that, this can all be done in an Arts Brave chain, so he can do it again. Things are looking really good for this prince. When it comes to allies, you can honestly pair Lanling with any other arts-focused servants and have them be good. However, I am going to give special mention to 5 just because, you probably want to see how he works with some of these characters. So let's go ahead and start with a freebie, one of my favorites, Okada Izo. Okada Izo, being an arts type servant and a critical damage focused servant, is going to benefit massively from having Lanling Wang on the team. Sure, he's going to have to fight Lanling for critical stars occasionally, but he gets a critical damage boost that's extended to 3 turns, an arts card effectiveness boost that lasts for 3 turns, a crit star drop rate boost for an assassin that lasts for 3 turns, and an attack boost to help him with his overall low assassin class attack. Remember, gang, the only buff Okada Izo has that lasts for 3 turns is his critical strength boost, tied to Mind's Eye Fake Rank C. So if you pair Lanling with him, worst case scenario, you're bringing Okada along on a challenge quest, you can actually use Mind's Eye for the evasion and not necessarily for the critical strength boost it provides, completely opening up another servant's survivability skill to use. I think that's a good trade-off. Our next 3 servants are sabers, and I picked 3 sabers to mention specifically because Lanling is also a saber. You are going to be bringing him along on Lancer challenge quests, so you might as well have some other stronger damage dealing sabers to pair him with, and they can all benefit from class advantage. Lancelot is always of special mention when it comes to art servants, but particularly in Lanling's case, when it comes to critical damage servants. Lancelot is already a crit king, and Lanling is just going to go ahead and amplify that. He's going to amplify his overall damage, his overall critical strength, his arts card effectiveness for a Rondite overload. If you didn't think making Lancelot better was possible, well, here's one of the few servants that can do it. There's also the servant some would call Lancelot's cousin, and the servant I personally prefer to use just because of looks, and that is Yagyu Munenori. Munenori, again, suffers from a similar problem to Okada Izo. He is very bursty. All of his buffs last for a single turn. So Lanling's 3-turn buffs end up opening up his damage for longer periods of time and makes him overall more consistent. On top of that, since Shinkage Ryu gives an arts card effectiveness boost plus a critical star gather rate boost, Lanling's critical strength boost that he has to give Munenori is going to make up for the fact that he doesn't actually have a critical damage boost for himself. And that is very important. Since Lanling has the buff effectiveness boost, I would be wrong if I did not mention Nero Claudius. Nero's very first incarnation, her vanilla incarnation, of course has Imperial Privilege, which is not reliable until you bring Lanling into the mix, and then it suddenly becomes 100% reliable when it comes to increasing attack and defense. So not only are you getting Lanling's buffs, you are making Nero overall more stable of a character. Plus, on top of that, he's got the arts card effectiveness to boot. So Laos St. Claudius is going to deal even more damage. And I guess that flat damage reduction doesn't hurt. Nero is already basically the arts type Heracles, the Saber Heracles, so any extra bit of survivability is well worth it. And this final one, my friends, I actually find this pairing hilarious because it is a Saber class servant supporting a caster type servant damage dealer. It is a wonderful example of the entire standard of the game getting flipped on its head. Lanling is actually a great support for Leonardo da Vinci. Giving Lanling Leonardo as an ally means that Leonardo's Inherent Wisdom EX is going to have a 100% chance to activate. So she's going to get a 20 to 30% defense increase and a 20-30% NP strength increase on top of all the buffs that Lanling is currently giving her. So Uomo Universal is gonna hit like a truck, it's gonna ignore defense, and she's gonna have that guaranteed maximum Noble Phantasm strength boost. When it comes to craft essences to equip Lanling Wang with, we want to overall support the team, as well as give Lanling the most opportunities to use his debuff/buff Noble Phantasm as possible. So as far as stats go, I tend to favor critical star generation per turn, as well as NP gain on this prince. For starters, I'd like to recommend a Fox's Knight's Dream. This is going to give you 20% NP gain and 3 critical stars per turn, not limit broken. The critical stars may not seem like much, but any little extra bit helps. The NP gain is really the huge prize from this. Being able to use that Noble Phantasm multiple times is going to be very, very helpful. Of course, if you're looking for just straight critical star generation, you can never go wrong with Fragment of 2030. I still don't understand why they thought this craft essence was a good idea, but it is still something we benefit from to this day. Magical Girl of Sapphire is also a great recommendation when it comes to shorter fights, since this gives Lanling a starting NP gauge steroid and will allow him to use his Noble Phantasm a lot faster. For a 4-star, more budget option, you can give Lanling Faithful Companions. This increases his arts performance by 8% and NP generation rate by 15%. The arts is going to not only increase his overall damage, but increase the NP gain he gains off of those regular arts cards. And finally, a great budget pick from what seems like an eternity ago is Chaldea Lifesavers. This grants Guts one time and also increases the equipped servant's NP generation rate by 15%. Again, that 15% boost helps Lanling use his Noble Phantasm faster, and that Guts status is going to allow him to survive a potentially fatal hit, giving him another chance to maybe use his Noble Phantasm again, use his invincibility to stay in the fight longer until he can get healed, or just get that extra turn he needs to give your servant that buff they so desperately require. Being an overall supporter servant, when it comes to command codes on Lanling, we want to prioritize utility over all else. Before I even get into things like NP gain, like critical star generation, anything like that, let me tell you that Mask of Concealed Beauty is a must, in my opinion, on this servant. This increases the buff success rate on Lanling by 20% once after he attacks using the engraved card. This allows Lanling to bring the overall success rate of Demonic Face rank EX to an 80%, which I personally feel is well within the margin of error, well within a gamble to cast, and allows Lanling to use that buff success rate boost on another ally if necessary. If that ends up not being the case, if you don't really need to do that on an ally that needs buff success rate, well, then you really don't need to invest a lot in his second skill to begin with, because this command code, combined with a level 1 of his second skill, ends up giving him the 100% success rate necessary to make Demonic Face rank EX proc every single time. So, if you have this command code on him, you can sort of lay off leveling his second skill second, save that for last, and prioritize Beauty Concealing Mask over it. It's a nice little trick that ends up giving him a little bit more survivability, but you need this command code to make it work. Magus of Flowers remains a strong pick on any servant, charging their NP gauge by a flat 10% when attacking using the engraved card. You could chuck this on Lanling's quick card and allow him to still generate Noble Phantasm whenever he uses it in order to use his debuffing NP. His arts cards will also benefit from Crest of Titan's Pit, a nice 5% NP generation rate boost, just a little bit of an extra kick in the pants for him. Star generating command codes like Holy Knight's Aurora Borealis are also excellent on Lanling as well, providing your main attacking servant with the critical stars that they need to deal extra damage and benefit from his critical strength buff. I know I kind of wore my heart on my sleeve at the start of this video, everyone, but Lanling Wang is severely underrated. Yes, he does have to deal with a % buff chance on his final skill, but he is easily able to overcome that by himself. He requires very, very heavy skill investment to reach his full potential, but the same can be said of absolutely every support servant in the entire game. From Helena Blavatsky to Skahawk Scotty, you need that skill investment in order for them to put in the work. Lanling Wang is just a Saber-style support, and while that class might hurt a little bit, while that class might mean that he ends up eating more critical stars than you like, well, that critical stars increases NP gain, allowing him to use his debuffing Noble Phantasm more often than not. And we're in the era of Scotty, people. We are in an era where people are generating critical stars like mad men. You can probably find a way to make your art servants generate the critical stars needed to fuel the Lanling Wang machine. He is well worth the risk, and probably I'm going to say it definitively. He's definitively the best servant on the first Lost Belt banner. But of course, I want to know what you all think, so go ahead and let me know your thoughts on Lanling down in the comment section below. Let me know if there are any particular arts type servants that you've had fun pairing him with if you play JP. Let me know if you think there's any good craft essences or command codes to throw on him. And if you're watching this after the banner goes live, well, let me know if you pulled him. Let me know if you were going for NP5. I definitely hope I am able to get him after my Shi Wangdi rolls. I just hope I pull Shi Wangdi early enough where I have some quartz left to spend on this banner. Anyways, gang, this is Kawaii50. If you want to talk some FGO, you can hit us up on Discord. If you think I'm doing a good job, my Patreon is always open, and you can go ahead and subscribe to me on Twitch as well if you want to see my roll streams in the future. I hope you're all having a phenomenal day, and I'll see y'all in the next video.